Do I have to do the gavel stuff? Is this legitimate? I don't know. Okay, well, I guess I'll call the meeting to order at 5 o'clock for the Port of Hood River Commission meeting. Is there any modifications, additions to the agenda?
Vice President Chapman. First of all, let me introduce Patty Rosas. Patty is our new contracts administrator. It's an internal promotion, and Patty was now tasked with taking minutes of these short meetings. So
Lovely.
welcome, Patty.
Thank you. And also, I think that maybe we should just take a moment because we have a lot of new technology here that I don't know if anything needs to be explained, or is that in here?
I had a couple of other items if I could.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Greg is out sick today. You won't see him. And then under consent item C, if you could turn to that, this is the approving check signatories that need to be done. We met with Craig Ortega yesterday, the local branch manager, and I'd like to suggest that a clause be added to the whereas, and I'll refer to council to make sure this is right. We should add before now, therefore, applies to all accounts at Columbia Bank.
Okay.
So it's simply clarification that the signatory authority accrues to every account we have over there. He wanted, he set that clarification.
Okay.
So that's, those are the only suggested changes to the agenda.
Okay. And then Genevieve, do you want to share with all of our new toys that we have?
Okay, yeah, welcome back. We do have, as you can see, a whole new system. I want to first of all acknowledge the help of Radcomp. They were here all day yesterday helping us set up. This is part of the Open Media Foundation agreement that the commission approved last year, or maybe even longer than last year ago, which provides live streaming and archiving and time stamping by topic of our meetings. It is tremendously difficult to do a hybrid in-person and Zoom meeting platform, and we now have the best of both worlds. We have a system that is not totally complete. I'll talk about what's coming before our next meeting, before we start. But this is really, really great. So folks, the public can attend from home. They can watch the recording and skip to the topic that they're interested in. This will be an open archive for our public meetings, and we can also meet in person. So you'll see we have one microphone here. We will eventually have 4. The other 3 were back ordered. So we'll have 2 more at the ends of the table here and 1 at the podium. We do have no public comment tonight, but we do have 1 presentation. So when that comes up, I'll actually move the microphone to the podium. But tonight's the last night, we'll do something like that. This also enables folks to zoom in and be a part of the meeting. So our lobbyists, our engineers can attend without flying to Hood River, and you guys can still meet in person. So it's a really great platform. This is the first time we've used it. I do expect some technical difficulties, but we'll work this out. Just like our Zoom meetings, this meeting is being broadcast live on our YouTube channel. It's also embedded on our website in a couple of different places, so it's really accessible. And obviously, folks can attend in person. So it's really the most open, COVID-safe way we can do this. And so I'm really proud of it. And I think it's something that we could help other agencies adopt, especially since we have Radcomp here to help us knit the whole thing together. So that's our.
Genevieve, is it important for us to speak up and speak towards that microphone?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, until we get all 4 of the microphones installed, you should speak up. The audio, maybe Ben could unmute himself, or John, and let us know that they hear us okay.
I'm having no problems hearing you guys at all. Sounds great.
Okay, we can hear you great.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you, John. So there we go. The one limitation is, unlike our Zoom meetings, I won't be able to share screen quite so much. So we will be back to, paper packets in front of you, or if you have your 3 commissioners are on their devices right now. So, that's just one thing that, is a little bit that we lose is showing the text on the screen, but
Great. Fun new technologies. Okay, and then Genevieve, I understand there's no public comment tonight.
no heading, but
Okay. Then if that is okay, then I'll move to consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda with the changes that Michael mentioned on item C?
Yeah, I would just suggest that item G, I asked for some clarification data on that, and it was sent out. I don't know if the other commissioners got that. But my question there was, how many bids did we have? And how close were they? And there was 3 bids and they were really close. So, you know, it's competitive.
Okay. Okay. And with that, does anyone want to make a motion?
I move to agree with the consent agenda as noted.
Okay, any second?
Second.
Any discussion? Without that, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All
Fox, aye.
opposed? Then
Online.
chair
Aye.
aye. Passes. Okay, informational reports. Does anyone have any questions for Kevin about the amazing accomplishments for the bridge replacement project update? It's I kind of feel like we should celebrate a little.
Well, we have ways to go.
I know.
But yeah, I just would like to just applaud both Commissioner Fox and all the support behind the scenes from the executive director. Michael's been very supportive of all of our efforts. And so, Chrissy, I know you've been at these meetings in addition to the mayors of Hood River, White Salmon, Bingen, and county commissioners here in Hood River. So it's really been an amazing effort, and we're just starting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we were in a meeting yesterday where Senator King attended, and he was extremely supportive. And he gave us some marching orders. Let me see if I can paraphrase it. Go faster.
Yes.
When we told him it was eight years out, he said, I was thinking more like, what do you say, 3 or 4, which good luck with that, but good. The real kicker for me with him was that we told him that our current philosophy is design, bid, build, because we don't have the money up front that we need to be able to put it together. And I got a feeling from him that he's ready to take that on. So as we bring in this new management contract, we need to step up our game a little bit and strategize with the lobbyists to get all 3 real entities, Oregon, Washington, and the feds, lined up to see if we can't break a big chunk of money loose and go do a design build. That's the quickest way to get it.
Yeah, well,
We'll see.
huge accomplishments. Congratulations to everyone.
one thing that did come up just today, as a matter of fact, we were talking with Hal Heemstra, our federal government affairs consultant. And there has been an additional amount of money put into the build or raise program now. And so we were kind of coming up with an idea of how to approach that funding, because we've been successful with the $5 million bill application. And his advice was that he thinks that we should keep our powder dry going for a singular large request for construction. And to maybe for this next round to do something in the 10 to 15 million range. We've got a proven track record with federal highways. And so that due date's April 15th. So, you know, it's going to take some effort. We do, as part of our NEPA contract with WSP, they have some grant authority, so they could actually help us with that grant agreement or the application. So I would certainly like to take a whack at it. I mean, we've got a lot. I'll be working primarily with this evaluation process for the RDMC with Commissioner Fox. But I think between what time I have with WSP's assistance, I think we can get an application out for that, you know, 10 to 15 million. And that should finish up the what I would refer to as soft costs. You know, that to get whatever final project management you need, finalize the engineering, some of the governance work, some of these other elements aside from construction. Use as much of that 75 million that the project will be receiving from Washington State and put the majority of that into construction. And then start building up that.
Yeah, we gotta build that kitty up to $400 million plus. So we got a long ways to go, but it would be a great start.
So I guess just, I don't know, Michael, if you just want consensus to proceed with that bill.
Well,
You
time
do
out.
this April 15th.
Right, it's coming up. Yeah.
I think we gotta follow protocol. Protocol is we take it to the bi-state working group, we get their concurrence, then bring it here for.
So our next bi-state working group meeting isn't until
We
4
can-
days.
We can call an intermediate.
Do it, okay, that's fine.
Absolutely.
Okay,
And all of them are ready to go.
Yeah.
So
I've just been impressed with the dedication of everyone. So it's really been neat to see
yeah.
all the work that's been being done.
I
So,
just don't want to change that protocol.
Sure.
You know, it's working. Let's not mess it up.
Exactly, okay.
Okay,
Maybe I'll talk to you and we can
Sure.
coordinate a good date.
does anyone have any questions for Kevin? Congratulations.
Well done.
Yes, okay, so item 4, presentation from Hood River Energy Council from Marla Harvey. Welcome, Marla.
Thank you. Thank you for being my first or nearly first presentation in person since the I appreciate your time today. So let me take a second. I'll load up your presentation. Got my clock here just so I can stay close to the 10 minutes so we can get to answering questions. But what I'll be covering today is following up on the materials that were in your packet. The Energy Council's updated work plan, getting your input and opportunities to collaborate this next year, as well as our updated fiscal year request. So if I can turn this slightly so I know where we are. Great. You can go to the next slide. So the work plan is our method of helping the community and along with the port meet the goals of the adopted Hood River County Energy Plan. Next slide. It was pulled together by the Hood River County Energy Council, which includes representatives from the agencies that adopted the energy plan. Thank you to Commissioner Christie and Fox for your service in that role, as well as elected officials from or members of the community that are expert in some areas of the energy plan. Next slide. The work plan was developed over multiple months. It was primarily driven by subcommittees. So if you're familiar with the energy plan, you know that there are various focus areas. There's a buildings focus area, a transportation and land use focus area, and a community scale subcommittees focus area. Next slide. What I will be covering today are priorities that I think would be of most interest to the port, but of course I welcome any questions on any of the projects in the work plan. Next slide. So one of the things that we would like to do this year is to reduce energy costs for our commercial and industrial customers. We know that these can be big business expenses and we want to get them access to free and resources on the topic. We can of course outreach to port businesses as part of that. Next slide. And the Transportation and Land Use Subcommittee we have a whole host of priorities. Next slide. Our primary focus is about infrastructure, electric vehicle infrastructure. We know that electric vehicles can save customers about $1,000 a year. We know that they're coming, that they are quickly reducing in price, and that they will be here before you know it, and that the biggest barrier getting in the way of electrification within a community is infrastructure. So we have a variety of projects that we are hoping to support related to infrastructure. One of them, which is the first one listed, is a study put forth by Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. That study, the port's expressed support for, would allow us to do a study of the whole community and determine where electric vehicle infrastructure is needed and how we can update infrastructure in order to get we can get ready for the upcoming transition. We can also potentially look at specific key agencies. So we could potentially examine the Port of Hood River's infrastructure for electrification as part of that study as well. We're also interested in getting resources out, again, that are free and available to assess charging station infrastructure. Next slide. Community Scale Subcommittee is all about how we can build renewable energy that creates resilience within the community and economic development. So what I'm primarily gonna focus on, next slide, is our goal of creating sustainable pathways to access, to identify and fund energy resilience projects within the community. So the first project listed here is a potential focus on Lot 1, depending on if it's of interest to you. We know from MCHED's interviews with a variety of industry leaders within Hood River County that power outages are a major risk for the business community, particularly for food and beverage manufacturers and for fruit processing and cold storage and high technology companies. So we'd like to have conversations with you to see where, if and where it makes sense to build microgrids to support industries and help access funding to do so. Next slide. This is thank you to Commissioner Fox for bringing this potential project or this project up for consideration. We are very excited about the Hood River Bridge. We know that the port is doing a lot to make it happen, and we appreciate that. We would love to be supportive, to connect you to resources, to identify if and where it makes sense to integrate energy efficiency and renewable energy at the Hood River Bridge. Next slide. At a bigger, more macro level, there is a lot of funding available to support energy resilience projects at the federal and state level. We know that accessing funding is not a simple path, and it can be burdensome, which can create barriers for access. So what we've been working on over the last few years, and which we will continue to work on, is a sustainable pathway to get some of those funds into our community that is viable and repeatable. Next slide. So on the slide are a variety of projects that the Energy Council has supported development of over the years. The highlighted projects are potential projects at the port building, including a potential community solar or straight solar project on the Jensen building, which I believe we're waiting on a re-roofing for that project. And then a potential solar project at the Port of Hood River airport hangar, if and when that's developed. So these are examples of some of the projects where funding could be leveraged to support, but we are of course looking at continuing to develop projects over the years. Next slide. So of the priorities that cross our subcommittees, I want to highlight the maintaining and growing capacity. Next slide. Which relates to our fiscal year 2023 request. So as many of you will know, I am transitioning out of MCHED at the beginning of April. And in order to maintain and to build upon the momentum that we've started over the last 5 years, we are striving to, we've hired at a higher level position for that role, and we're also seeing increasing costs. So what we are asking of our governing bodies is an increased funding request for this fiscal year. Of course, we will continue to leverage outside resources. This is a high-level overview of some of the funding that we've leveraged over the last 3 years in the last work plan period. Next slide. In addition to non-quantified but very valuable outside technical assistance that we often bring to the table in our conversations. I always want to highlight the Energy Trust of Oregon, which has been a very important strategic partner of the Energy Council since development. Next slide. These are just more of our partners. And last slide. So with that, I hope that you would consider the increased request of $20,000. We think that we are also well positioned to directly support the port in a number of ways over the next few years, including supporting coordination around the community's interest and priorities within the study, if and when it's funded, which we are optimistic that it will be funded. Of course, what was mentioned regarding the Hood River Bridge opportunities, and then, basically the projects I already mentioned. Next slide. So with that, these are the questions that I would love your input on. Basically, What do you think about the projects that relate directly to the Port of Hood River? Are these of interest to you? Are there any that are particularly interesting? Are there others that you'd want the Energy Council to consider supporting? And then do you have any input or concerns about the updated funding request? That's all.
Thank you so much, Marla. Congratulations on your.
Thank you.
That you do well. If anyone has questions for Marla, now's a good time to ask. And just as a reminder that we'll be having this discussion more so at our spring planning. And so we won't really be discussing, our support or things like that now. But if anyone has additional questions, please feel free. Otherwise,
Could you spend maybe just a couple of minutes and explain what's going down at the waste treatment plant?
Yes, so the Hood River County or the city of Hood River wastewater treatment plant is the largest energy user in the community. And so there's been a lot of interest over the years in developing some sort of mechanism to either generate renewable energy or create savings at the facility. The initial study was done to look at cogeneration, which is a form of renewable energy, and the particular system that was evaluated didn't make sense at this time, but we're still figuring out whether or not there are other opportunities to pursue cogeneration or pursue other things like microgrids, which again could protect the community and protect that facility if there's a power outage. There's other opportunities that are early days in terms of being considered that I do not want to propose and suggest and put on the public record, but what we're continuing to kind of investigate options at the wastewater treatment plant. And the city is moving forward with a lot of upgrades, so it's sort of we're trying to align with those opportunities.
The intent of the cogen would be to burn off the waste, spin a turbine, generate electricity.
Yes. Yes.
Further opportunities for hydro rate system. I noticed there's there's one mention. It's the hold up. Permitting.
So I take my direction on those from there's a whole effort called the Hood River Basin Study that's evaluated, where those inline hydro make sense within current water lines. And my understanding is that there's 3 projects that the Energy Council is supporting. One of them is within the city of Hood River hydro system, and that one is looking to be moved forward. It's feasible. Are you asking about the projects that are existing or additional opportunities?
No, the ones that are.
Yeah, and then my understanding, so the ones within irrigation districts and I think Crystal Springs Water District, the issue there was around getting basically a power purchase agreement that was lucrative enough to build the system. And I just heard in an email recently that there might be some changing tides there. So I will share those updates when I have them. But I think it was just really about you have to sell that power and there wasn't rates that were sustainable. Thank you. And thank you, Port Commissioners. It's been a pleasure to work with many of you over the years and Port staff. Thank you.
all right, on to the executive director report. Michael?
Yeah, let me learn to speak into the microphone or speak up. Let me just highlight a couple of things or a few things. There's a draft spring planning agenda attached to my report, and I would just ask commissioners to look at that and consider additions, especially to the key issues discussion. We want to make sure that spring planning is conceived and delivered in a way that is responsive to what you want. The PNWA mission is going on right now. This is the second day. I had the opportunity, I was assigned the opportunity to have a brief discussion with Senator Wyden today. And the time I had, I brought up permitting challenges, especially using the bridge as an example. And the senator was, as you'd expect, very responsive, and he has said he will assign a staff to help us look in on the challenges we're facing and see if we can provide some help. Big thanks to the newsletter that Genevieve was a big part of putting together. That's a lot of work, especially the annual, putting it all together. Genevieve is really the quarterback for that with Paige and Roundtree helping. Thank you. And you find a memorandum attached from HDR. It's really a summary of a meeting that occurred recently with ODOT. And what you should expect at the April 6th spring planning meeting is an action item to consider, which would be taking the next steps in terms of engineering the various aspects to upgrade weight limit of the bridge. And then finally, and perhaps for President Shepherd, unfortunately, there was a significant accident on the bridge yesterday. I sent an email out to the commission. You all are aware of the big backup. It was an oversized vehicle that came across without notice, and it impacted call it a semi truck right mid-span of the lift span. It got hung up. It required traffic in both directions to be backed off the bridge, which is quite a feat in itself. No damage, no structural damage, a little bit of damage to the guardrail, but nothing beyond that. However, after having gone through all that, you would expect there to be some modest degree of citation or fine or complaint, and there was none. And John Mann is on the line. He can explain more if you want, but apparently there was no penalty for this, incident that occurred. So
Just quick question on the low boy. What was the weight of that low boy, and were they overloaded to the bridge?
John, do you have that by any chance?
Commissioner Fox, I believe you're kind of right on track there. That was pretty much the first words out of my mouth, and we had state police on scene as well. So I kind of figured when they got him to the other side of the road, they'd have a discussion about all that. And we got the truck driver corralled over where they could talk to him, but we were still busy trying to get traffic cleared. It was such a mess down there. And there was just no action taken, no citation given. And our signage is very clear, 9-foot passing. It's very, very clear. There's a ODOT procedure for crossing our bridge with an oversized load. That procedure is very clear to every truck driver.
Yeah, John, I get that part. I was really wondering the weight of that rig. Did it exceed the restriction?
That I don't know, because we never saw the load tickets, and I'm not sure the load tickets were ever given for that, even checked by the police officers. It was certainly asked. I certainly said, I believe he may be overloaded with that.
See, I think we got to look at this thing. How do we assure that we don't have a truck that's overloaded going across the bridge? And we got to make that bridge last another 8 years. And the quickest way to destroy that bridge is to overload it and go too fast on it.
Absolutely.
We've been in touch with the Waymaster in Cascade Lawn. Aside from a weigh in motion system, which is about $500,000.
Yeah.
The quickest way to have an impact is to set up jump scales and have, those are $1,000 fines. And it happened once, and that was about 6 years ago. Jump scale set up, state police. And I had truckers in my office within minutes after they're pulled over. So we've been in touch with them about the notion of setting up on their schedule, jump scales, episodic enforcement. It's a bit complicated because it's a private bridge and their parlance and all that, but there is a way to do it. Aside from that, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm concerned on both sides, but I'm more concerned on the Washington side because there's no buffer there whatsoever of trucks entering onto the bridge from the Washington side. Nobody's watching it. Where here with the toll booth, you do have some people that are kind of watching out for that, and you have a pinch point there trying to get a truck through that narrow area. So you've got a little better chance of picking it up. But I've also seen where trucks leave the toll booth and within that merge area, they're doing way over the speed limit. Very hard to manage. I don't know, I think we ought to take an action item and see if we can't chase down. And I don't know, John, if it's possible, but going to the police, did they pick up a weight ticket off of this guy, or is there
I don't
any way
know.
we can go back and check that?
I'll tell you what we did to find out. And what we found out was there was no citation, no case number, and no report. We had three separate agencies there. We had no case number, no ticket, and no report.
So did we hand them donuts or anything?
Yeah, you expressed my disappointment. I mean, it put a lot of people in an unsafe situation. We had people terrified to back off of that bridge, and there were a bunch of us orchestrating that. It was a very dangerous situation, one of the worst I've been in my 9 years here.
I think we dodged a bullet, but you don't want to do that again.
To my knowledge, Commissioner Fox, because of the way we have all of our widths set up, every truck driver has access to that information. They absolutely know that we do not accept unscheduled, oversized loads. And this person just thought they were going to sneak through. To my knowledge, it's never happened before because it's posted so well and it's such common knowledge. But this was the company, I believe, was Heavy Load Professionals, I believe was the name of the company.
You know, I think it would be worthwhile spending a couple of calories and trying to chase down that driver through that company and complain to their supervisor or to the head of the company that they put our bridge at danger. They put people at danger doing this. I mean, even if we just do that conversation to warn them that what you did was not right.
Yeah, I think that's a very reasonable request. I think it would take almost no legwork. It's got to be a local company. He was hauling a skid. It was, a skid loader. So it's got to be a local logging company.
So I would suggest that we take an action item and we make those phone calls. Today is Tuesday, by the end of the week, so you don't let it go very long. The quicker we do this, the better chance we have of finding that driver.
We have the name of the driver. We have his information. We made sure to get that ourselves.
Okay,
So we'll follow up.
Thank you.
thank you, John.
Thanks for all your work, John.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That concludes my report.
Okay.
Just an observation on this report from the engineering group on the load study. When I went through and read this, see if I can paraphrase it. The engineering company that was doing the load study was supposed to sit down with ODOT beforehand and make sure that the approach was going to be able to be used by ODOT. I'm assuming that happened. What I get out of this report is that ODOT can no longer use some of the information that was collected because perhaps they changed the system or something there that the data no longer applies into the program to do this calculation. So we're either going to have to go back and capture additional information in particular one area, or we're going to have to take the data that we've got, some of the data, try and convert it into a format that their analysis programs can now use. Is that true?
That's not the way I would summarize it.
Okay, could you summarize it?
ODOT has agreed that HDR's, VDI's testing and HDR's analysis can be the basis for supplemental rating analysis. Before they do that, or when they do that, they have to make certain assumptions. They have to assume that the North and or the Oregon and Washington approach ramps are repaved. That changes their calculations. They they have to anticipate or include in their calculations the tie rod. And I can't remember the exact term for it, but there's a component piece of the Oregon ramp that needs to be done. Needs to be done in any circumstance. So when
You mean load tested, it wasn't included in the original load test.
no, it's additional structural work that needs to be carried out. So they, in their supplemental weight rating, they have to make those 3 key assumptions. And then we have to do the work for that supplemental can be recognized by ODOT and utilized as a basis for a change in the weight rating. If they do that work, the weight rating, remember that prior presentation can move up, but not all the way to 40,000 or 80,000 pounds. To get back up, if we want to get there, then there's an additional body of work that might be $150,000, a couple $100,000 to do. So they have approval from ODOT to do the supplemental. They have to make these assumptions and use those in their calculations. And then before that can be acknowledged, we have to do that work. So that's a proposal, scope and fee proposal that you'll see at the next meeting.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, thank you for your report. And now on to Commissioner and Committee reports by State Working Group. Mr. Fox.
Yeah, we've been doing an awful lot of work the last months. Recently, yesterday, we had a bi-state working group meeting and focused on basically getting the RFP ready to be released. We evaluated it. There was a couple of areas that needed some clarification, and I'll walk you through that. When you look at the RFP, and you all should have a copy of it, when you look at the description of the work, there was a couple of pieces that were missing in that write-up. We explained it that this RFP has been revised a number of times, and between some of the versions, that particular section, there was 1 or 2 elements that got lost in translation. So we explained our approach that the document as it is still very accurate and it's appropriate. When we get into the evaluation phase of bids, if you remember, there's 3 major components to the evaluation. We give the RFP out, the bidders come back with written document of their proposal. We'll take a team of 5 to evaluate each of these proposals. We will score versus with a scorecard that's in the RFP. The top 3 will be selected, down selected. The rest go away. These 3 then are invited into an oral board review. And the oral board review has 2 elements. One element is a presentation by the companies of their approach, their team, just a chance to see them face to face, so on. The second piece of it is to provide to them 2 problem sets. And they will have an hour for each problem set to go develop a response to it. They will come back and they will present their response for each of these problems as a team to the evaluation team. The evaluation team has a scorecard already designed. It's in the RFP. We will sit there and score each of the presentations. At the end of the presentations, we will summarize up the score, and the top company with the top score will be invited to proceed forward into negotiation. There's a hold point there. We will bring that recommendation back to the bi-state working group and on to the Port Commission for approval to proceed into that negotiation. Once we get into the negotiation, which is basically on cost only, everything prior to that is based on experience, approach, the soft skills types of things, nothing to do with money. Once we get into that third piece of it, where we're talking money, we've decided, talking with a number of folks, is that we're going to take this spreadsheet that you see on your table here on your desk. And if you take a look at it, we're trying to figure out, okay, how are we really going to judge this? So we said across the top is there's a number of resources, and a resource is project management, project engineering, contracts, those kinds of folks across the top. And then down the y-axis is salary information, payroll ads, total wages, corporate overheads, fees and profit, total all-in wage rate. And you can't see it on this, but that is in a gray shaded area. When you look down below, you'll see by month for the fiscal year, and we're assuming we're going to run these contracts on the port fiscal year cycle, July through June. So we have down the left-hand side, I think it's 11 different types of work or work assignments for the year. Example, the first one being develop a project management plan, implement the PMP reporting, develop an AE RFP ready to issue, evaluate bids, recommend award, monitor progress or design. And you can go down through the rest of them. The one that was missing out of the write-up happens to be it's on the next page, deals with the PPP evaluation. Yeah, item number 9. So we show that we do in fact have it in the plan, and it will be considered as part of the work plan as we go forward with this contract. So the idea is we will take the company will lay in their required hours to perform this work in the green box, if you will. We will take the wage rates from the top down the side, multiplying by their corresponding yearly totals to come up with total cost. We go all the way to the bottom. The bottom summarizes up the cost, adds space for non-labor related costs. We come out with a total for the year. We'll then take this same sheet, and we're in the process of looking at a couple of different companies to do an independent evaluation of this fair price estimate, if you will. They'll take the same sheet and they'll come up with an estimate. The intent then is we bring these two estimates together. We do an evaluation between the two. We sit down and negotiate with the contractor to try and get to a somewhere in between or the best deal that we can get. Then we award the contract based on this related cost. Now, this is good for a year. What we intend to do is going forward, we will put this system in place for the entire contract. So next year in the May timeframe, prior to June 4 or July 1st, we'll issue this out, but it'll be a 3-year picture. So the first year will be the current year that's coming up. That's what we will authorize for them to go ahead and do work for. The second and the third year is used for pre-planning, but also to accelerate work. So if we can find that we can get this work done for cheap, and we want to spend all of the money, we will accelerate work forward where it makes sense through change control. And that'll go through the bi-state working group and through this organization as well to authorize that work. This will all be tied to availability of funds. So we've tied it to a yearly available of funds and go that way. So that's how I think yesterday we got concurrence from the bi-state working group to go ahead and bring it to you folks for a recommendation to proceed. We've got plans in place to kick it out the door tomorrow. And on the 31st, we have plans to have an industry day. And we've got an agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, We've got an agenda that we worked through yesterday, and we've got assignments already made where the first name is the primary, the second name will be backup. So the board will attend the event. It's going to be Zoom. And we will go through each of these topics to kind of introduce what we're trying to do with this contract, why it's important to us. And then we'll see if we get any questions. Typically at these kinds of things, you don't. It's really, they're trying to figure out, okay, who's going to be the competition in developing, the bids. And also, do you have anybody that really understands what they're doing from the customer side? So there's a test going on here. So I'd be surprised if we get a whole lot of real questions. A lot of times they will hold those questions back. They don't want to give out their strategy to somebody else. So that's coming up on the 31st. We're all locked and loaded for that. We're meeting next week with the evaluation team to make sure that we all understand the process. We understand the scorecards. We're setting up Kevin's office over here as the bid center. The intent is we want to go real silent when we're reviewing bids. I mean, you're not going to hear anything about it. So we're going to go real secure. We will lock things up in this office. It's the intent that we're going to meet there as much as we possibly can to do the evaluation, do the scoring, do the discussion, make our recommendations. All supporting material will be kept in that office under lock and key. So it minimizes the chance of something leaking out and contractor A figuring out what contractor B is doing and so on. We're taking a lot of effort to try and protect ourselves from that and keep the whole evaluation very pure. So anything else?
Regarding that, I would say that for the commission's attention, that there will be a small kind of advising contract,
Yeah.
not unlike what OTAC had in the NEPA process. So we're basically doing brief interviews with 3 firms. It would be a short-term contract, less than $50,000.
Yes, about 4 weeks.
And then they would be the ones that would be doing the independent hours and the rate check for that sheet. So that would probably be coming back to the Port Commission after by state working group review next 2 to 4 weeks.
Great.
The other item that I think is worth noting is that if anything does come out of that pre-proposal meeting of significance, then Port will be responsible for issuing an addendum or addenda. Anything that would change the not so much clarification, but any information that's really pertinently different that the entire industry needs to know about out of that meeting, we would be posted in that addendum. The other item that is of significance, there's been so much focus on the great financial news, but the other element is the Bi-State Bridge Authority. Legislation has been passed by both states. Steve Siegel prepared a memo, shared it with the Bi-State Working Group on the main priorities that the Bi-State Working Group will need to dive into for creating these commission formation agreements. Those CFAs, if you will, would then go to all 6 boards for adoption, and that would be a key milestone for creating this new bridge authority. So the Bi-State Working Group asked for a member of the working group to serve as kind of a subcommittee, if you will, to work with me and Steve Siegel on all of those elements before coming back to the working group. And so Hood River County Commissioner Bob Benton agreed to be the liaison to that effort. So,
Yeah.
And that will be that's going to be a big effort because we're basically laying out the principal act and the charter elements of this new local government.
Yeah, good point. Very good point. So a lot of work there. It's kind of neat work because we get to set it up the way we want to set it up.
Yeah.
So if we screw it up, it's just us.
Though Commissioner Fox did not raise his hand to serve in that subcommittee.
I'm not sure if it was volunteering or voluntold. Well, I guess we'll have to ask Commissioner Benton on that.
So, and-
Well,
and
he
there-
kind of feels like he got,
And we are going to be meeting next week, next Wednesday. Benton, Siegel, and myself have our first. meeting.
excellent, good.
Good question. Kevin, there's $1.5 million from the state of Washington for TNR study. We haven't had a chance to talk about it, but how does that factor into the work of the RBMC? How do you see that being carried out?
That's actually number 8 on the work plan.
Yeah, I think, originally, I'd say about 18 months ago, we did a sketch analysis. Stantec, if you recall, came out and did some work. As part of that, there was their opinion as to when a level 1, a level 2, and an investment grade traffic and revenue analysis would occur. That level 1 normally doesn't start until after NEPA is complete, because that's when you get your preferred alternative, which path you're going to be taking. So my understanding, and I have a meeting tomorrow at 11 with WashDOT, Scott Langer, who's like the #2 administrator for the Southwest region, to find out a little bit more on how this is going to manifest itself. My anticipation, I'm anticipating that the money that we have been budgeting for traffic and revenue studies through this project could be kept to the project, and Washington would be doing that work on behalf of the project. Now, I don't know that for sure because.
That's kind of what I heard from Senator King yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, so it's even additional good news. Now, in talking with Siegel and others, financial entities may require additional independent studies. So it's a little unclear if this is going to be the final need for traffic and revenue. But it's a great step forward that it's something that initially we won't have to pay for out of our project.
So you're going to clarify whether it's money for WashDOT to do this, or whether it's money to the port to do this.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that's going to be Washington.
So they'll hire that consultant. And it's the deadline for that, I think, if I remember, is 2024. To have that work complete, is that correct?
Yeah, that's some of the details I'm going to follow up with Scott on.
Yeah, the interesting challenge with that is that what I heard from Senator King yesterday, which you guys are going to hear about, is that he asked how long it was going to take to build this bridge. And when I said, we'll open it October 2030, he said, why is it taking so long? So we had a discussion there about design, bid, build, which he knows what that is. And I said, if you wanted to accelerate it, design, build is much quicker. The challenge that we have, Senator, is we don't have $500 million on day one. And his response was something in the neighborhood, paraphrasing, we'll see if we can't work on that. That was a really positive first step. So Kevin and I were talking about it. We ought to jump all over that as quick as we can and see if we can't get something moving there with him helping sponsor, putting pressure on federal and the state to see if we can accelerate this thing.
A lot of work. You guys have
Okay.
done an amazing job, and it's very, thank you for all of your hours you guys have spent.
You too.
Well, I just listen a lot. Any questions for them, or we'll go to urban renewal? Heather and I both attended that last night. I can take it if you want, or and then you can if you want. The main takeaway is that they're working on their plan for the West Side or Cascade district, urban renewal district, and there's seems to be some communication on we have to sunset the waterfront in order for us to maximize the West Side district, and I think that there might be a little bit of a disconnect in understanding that fully. When I posed a couple questions to the urban renewal, they kind of said, well, we could maybe talk about that. Do we want to put our efforts into that? I discussed possibly shrinking the waterfront to only include lot 1, so we could not write that off and we could maybe possibly use it down the road, or maybe even identifying some of the projects that weren't done on the waterfront that might not be of importance now, but if we had an analysis, and of course, staffing is always an issue for everyone, and especially now. And so I had the idea, and I thought, because I do think that lot 1 is an important thing to keep open for future funding possibilities. So I was wondering if the commission would like to maybe direct staff to engage with the city a little bit more, to have a little deeper discussion of what are our options, what do we, because according, and correct me if I'm wrong, the sense that I got was that the city council really believes that the waterfront has to be sunsetted in order to move forward. And I don't necessarily think that we've explored that entirely. And I think it would be worth maybe having Greg or yourself or someone have a meeting with Will to kind of see what's the probabilities, because he was very forthcoming in saying, those urban renewal funds are available for public agencies to use. So lot 1 would definitely be an appropriate recipient of that if, so just wanted to see if you guys would be okay with having staff have additional conversations with the city before the train's already left the station, and everyone agreed that they're going to continue on their path to create the West Side District, but maybe we at least want to talk about it a little bit.
2 points of why they would need to sunset the waterfront, and they were, all the funds for the waterfront are being spent on the sewer line,
Mhm. Stormwater line.
or
Yeah.
stormwater line
Yep.
rather, and also
Well, they referenced that
they
the,
also said that the west side couldn't be nearly as big as they wanted to. They kept the waterfront district in there.
Following that. Why does one interfere with the other one?
we only can have a certain percentage of lands identified in these urban renewal areas. And it's a total of 25% of our total lands. And so the West Side District that they want to create is large enough that,
We never had that problem at all. Never had.
well, because of,
Well, the district-
according to the research I've heard, is that the maximum we've ever gotten to is only about 12% of our land. When we did the Heights and downtown and the waterfront, it was nowhere near that. But now that the Heights is still open and the size of the west side that they want to create, it puts us past that 25%, which is why I thought we could at least have the discussion of, could we shrink the waterfront to keep lot 1 as a viable opportunity?
Have they accepted that idea?
They said they hadn't even really just thought about it. And the other thing is that they're going off of a 2008 waterfront plan. So they identified projects back in 2008 that were of importance to them. Most of those have been completed, but that was also 2008. And I think that the needs of the waterfront have changed significantly in that time. And we might want to, it might be worth our while, Will did say that if we wanted to do something else, it would be a major amendment process to add additional projects to that. But I think it might be worth a conversation. So I'd love our staff to communicate with the city staff to see.
Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about one discussion.
Yeah.
Lucy, what's our indebtedness now? with the Waterfront District?
I believe the waterfront district is all paid off. I think that we've already, and you can
Yeah,
correct me if I'm,
they've repaid the URA loans that were made.
yeah.
There's a maximum indebtedness number, of course, it's set when the district is formed. What's not clear about it, so I've talked to Will before about the one-time plus up you can do in the MI, the maximum indebtedness. And you can do that. I think it would result in about $1.3 million or so of increased funding without having to go to the other taxing jurisdictions.
It's a minor.
Plan amendment requires taxing jurisdiction buy-in. That's a whole other equation. But I'm curious, I'd be curious to talk to Will about that one-time plus at minimum. And then second, in fact, I thought that there were a path to use the downtown district within a year or two. Is that still?
That's according to the understanding I have is, yes, that's being sunset.
So actually, the combination of downtown plus waterfront.
That's how big the,
collectively,
yeah,
that would be needed to make sure the west side.
yeah,
It's a lot
but
of land.
it's a lot of land, and that's why I think that having a discussion, I think would be a good idea.
So driving the west side district is the Grand Road intersection?
That's a big piece, yes, a very big piece. And I know that they've been talking to Parks and Rec about trying to carve out trails, and it's for the whole section and all of Cascade, and I mean, it's ambitious. The work plan is incredibly ambitious, and but I just think that Lot 1 is such a precious public area for all citizens that I think we should do our best to try and protect it so that we could maybe utilize it.
If you'd like, I could sit down with Greg, we could go over it, and then
Yeah,
one or both of us, maybe Greg could meet with Will Norris.
yeah, perfect. That would be great. And that's all for urban renewal. If anyone has any other questions, and then visit Hood River, I didn't, there wasn't a meeting, I believe it's coming up. The only thing that I really have to report is that they're moving forward with their 22-23 strategic plan, and they're going through the RFP process of working with the company that's going to help them through that process. And so I don't have much to report on that. So then we can move to action items. So Kevin, I think that between the presentation and kind of discussion and your update of everything going on, this might be an easy discussion with all of the background that you both have already given us, but do you want to take it away?
The only thing I would add that hasn't been discussed already is that for that first year contract, it's a range of about 1.2 to 1.4 million for the first year. Phase 1, which is a 4-year phase, really up until construction, is estimated to be 6 million. And phase 2, which is including the management of the project from construction all the way through demolition and remediation, is roughly 15 million. I mean, these are very broad strokes. So the recent $75 million appropriation from the Washington Transportation Bill certainly would be eligible for this work, but the contract itself that will primarily be reimbursed by the Washington Senate Bill 5165, that's the last session $5 million, will be paying most of the heavy lifting on this owner's project management. So that's just a little bit of background on the funding of it. But other than that, staff certainly recommends authorizing release of the replacement bridge management contract request for proposals as presented.
And I know that we have strong support from the bi-state group.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Concurrence.
There were a couple of answers that were parts that were missing.
No, we got it clarified. As written is fine by the bi-state. This fixes all of that as we go through with the one individual company that would go forward.
Okay, so does anyone want to give a motion?
Motion to authorize release of the replacement bridge management contract request for proposals as presented.
Can I get a second?
Well, since
Go ahead.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? Okay, if not, all in favor?
Aye.
I as well.
Any, okay, so no nays, and so chair says aye, or vice chair says aye. Passes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, commission call. Any commissioners have anything they'd like to say? Toby, Heather? Nope. Nope. Commissioner Shepherd, anything you need to add?
Nope, nothing for me.
Okay, and then I'm good as well. And any confirmation of commission directives to staff? I don't think, yes, Sarah.
Commissioner Fox asked staff to chase down the rookie driver.
Perfect.
And figure that out. And then the second one was the request for staff to meet with the urban renewal
Perfect.
and move forward with that.
Oh, yeah, that was mine. Sorry. Thank you for keeping me on track. Is there anything else from anyone? If not, then I will go ahead and adjourn the,
Recess.
or I will recess the regular session, and we will take a, you said you need about 5 minutes.
You got a 5-minute break.
We'll take a 5-minute break, and then we will reconvene for executive session under ORS 192.6602E, real estate negotiations, and ORS 192.3559A, and ORS 192.6602F to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection, and ORS 192.6602H regarding